We may wonder why certain periods in history are marked by sometimes radical changes and mass human movements. By movements, I mean collective ideologies or idea structures, beliefs, that seem to take hold of people and become the predominant reality tunnel of the times. In other words, it is the collective behavior and actions of a large group of individuals driven by shared beliefs, values, or ideologies. It involves the psychological processes that influence individuals to join and participate in an ideological crusade, as well as the psychological dynamics that occur within the group itself. I have delved deeply into this topic in my book, Overcoming the Archon Through Alchemy. I would highly recommend that book to you if you're interested in learning more about mass movements, memetics, and how to counter and even thrive within the realm of mob mentality. In this particular video, I would like to describe the process of mass psychological movements, which I sometimes refer to as the mob mind, by outlining and discussing a rather controversial concept introduced by biologist Rupert Sheldrake. He proposes that morphogenic or morphogenetic fields are areas of space where there is a concentration of non-physical information. This information influences the development and behavior of living organisms, including their shape, size, and organization. This is a rather complex topic that proposes that information fields have the potential to affect everything from cell biology and evolution to crystalline structures. However, in this particular video I would like to focus on the ability of morphogenic fields to affect human behavior patterns. In that sense, you could think of morphogenic fields as essentially non-physical information fields that influence the behavior of living organisms. I propose that such fields are responsible for human behavior patterns. By describing the general tendency of these information fields, we can begin to understand a little about mass human psychological movements and, in turn, gain insight into how the mass of the human race can sometimes be led to move in certain highly predictable directions, and in that sense, how the mass of humanity can be controlled. In the past, I have talked about the Archon, a vast non-organic cloud-like entity consisting of a legion made up of billions of sentient parts that spreads itself across the mass of the human world. I have said that, through a kind of information field transference, it directs the general awareness of humanity. My hope is that through a greater understanding of morphogenic fields, you can begin to grasp the underlying currents that shape our world. It is crucial to emphasize this information as these guiding or controlling forces are not perceivable by human physical sciences, they are not quantifiable in average human terms, and yet they affect the entirety of the human realm. To start, let me give you a general definition of morphogenic fields. Rupert Sheldrake, a British biologist and author, proposes the concept of morphogenetic and morphogenic fields as a way to explain how living organisms inherit and express behaviors that are not solely determined by genetics or environmental factors alone. In essence, morphogenetic fields deal with the origin of form and ancestral knowledge in biological systems, while morphogenic fields impose form and a kind of order on inanimate objects and indeterminate patterns of activity, such as society and culture. According to Sheldrake, morphogenetic and morphogenic fields are non-material structures that underlie the development and behavior of complex organisms, including mammals and humans. Greatly simplifying this topic and sticking to concepts that are relevant to this video, here's how these fields can change behavior patterns. Inheritance of behaviors. This means that behaviors learned by an individual are not simply forgotten or lost over time, but rather remain stored within their body-mind system and can be accessed and expressed in future generations. Epigenetic influence. This means that an individual's exposure to certain environmental cues or experiences can result in changes to their gene expression patterns, leading to differences in behavior and physiology. Collective memory. This means that an individual's behavior is influenced not only by its own personal history but also by the cumulative experience of their ancestors and peers, leading to emergent patterns of behavior that are greater than the sum of their parts. Field-based inheritance. This means that an individual's development is influenced by the collective field of its species or population, rather than solely by genetic factors. Self-organization. Morphogenetic fields can also facilitate self-organization within complex systems, such as the brain and nervous system, and even societies. Adaptation. Morphogenetic fields can adapt over time through a process called morphic resonance. which involves the transmission of information from one generation to the next. Cultural influences. Morphogenetic fields can also influence cultural transmission and the spread of ideas, values, and beliefs between individuals and groups. By shaping an individual's behavioral repertoire through epigenetic mechanisms, morphogenetic fields can facilitate the emergence of complex social structures and cultural practices within a population. Intergenerational influence. Morphogenetic fields can exert an intergenerational influence on behavior patterns by transmitting information about past experiences and behaviors to future generations. So, morphogenetic fields, through a kind of unmeasurable resonance field, a kind of telepathic data transference field, play a crucial role in shaping the development and behavior of living beings. Understanding morphogenetic fields offers insights into how large resonating information fields can affect mass human reality. But, how does a field of this nature begin, and how does it grow in power? According to Sheldrake, there are a number of factors that may be responsible for the growth and development of such fields. Of great importance to anyone trying to understand the power and the emergence of the mob mind, large social movements, and even collective human control, is the proposed fact that morphogenic fields can grow thanks to 1. Resonance with other fields. Morphogenetic fields can resonate with other fields within a species or population, such as the collective consciousness of a group or the natural environment in which an individual lives. This resonance can facilitate communication and coordination among individuals and contribute to the growth and development of the morphogenetic field. In other words, the collective consciousness and the collective unconscious of humanity can create and enlarge a resonance field large enough to affect huge swaths of humanity. The bigger it grows, the more people that are affected by such a resonating field. 2. Non-local influences. Morphogenic fields are thought to operate on a non-local level, meaning that they do not occupy any one particular point in measurable space and time. This also means that these resonation fields of ever-growing information can be influenced by factors beyond the immediate physical environment. This includes interconnected patterns of energy within a species or population and even larger-scale influences such as cosmic forces. Here we may include the archon, which is a true cosmic force, a non-organic entity of cosmic scale. In other words, a morphogenic field is an unmeasurable data field that resonates like a kind of radio wave, and this wave can be created by cosmic forces such as the archon. And further, these fields have the possibility of not only affecting the human mind, but may also even be responsible for some genetic change. We can therefore say that morphogenic fields grow and change the human world thanks to the human conscious and unconscious collective, and thanks to cosmic forces that are in essence beyond current human measure and understanding. As a brief example of the power and the feeling of morphogenic fields, let me put it to you this way. Imagine that you are alone in a room very late at night when most of the world is sleeping. It is during these hours that many creative people tend to be most productive because, generally speaking, it is believed that at this time and under such conditions, the mind can remain still and focused on its own thoughts without being influenced by the thoughts of the human collective. Imagine that someone walks into this room so that now there are two people. If you were able to pay close attention to your awareness as you transition from being alone to being in the company of another person, you might notice a difference in your thought process. With an additional individual present, there is often an instant shift away from focusing solely on oneself and toward incorporating the presence of that other person into one's thoughts. There is this instant shift in personal awareness to include the self and the other. If another person enters that room, and then another, and another, then that division of self grows to include a larger base of others. And each individual person in that room begins to vibrate with a certain resonance that encompasses not only the individual but also the collective of individuals in that room. As more people enter that room, the focus of the individual spreads wider and wider, and the growing strength of that collective resonance, like a kind of psychic pooling of energy, intensifies that collective psychic structure until each individual finds it harder and harder to find their own core self, and instead becomes part of a resonating field of collective thought. This is how an individual becomes part of a mob. Now, the immense power of the concept of morphogenic fields is that this particular individual does not need to leave their room or have another person enter his room in order to experience the effects of collective resonance. Morphogenic resonance signifies that each person within their own space, their own room, influences all other individuals within their respective spaces, without requiring physical proximity. In this manner, one mind can impact numerous minds. Another way to express this idea is by saying that by affecting a single mind, you can ultimately influence many others as well. As more minds embrace a particular belief or adopt a specific dogmatic position, the strength of this resonant field intensifies. This morphogenic field begins to exert an increasingly potent influence on the group. And incredibly, these influences, the cause and the development of these resonating fields, can come from the collective unconscious of humanity or even potentially unseen cosmic forces, such as the Archon. This non-local influence transcends our understanding of space and time, existing in a realm beyond our sensory perceptions. The nature and extent of these influences may be mysterious or enigmatic, yet they may undoubtedly contribute to shaping the collective experience of humanity. As to the actual mechanisms that can develop and grow a morphogenic field powerful enough to affect a large mass of people, in the simplest of terms you could say that it all comes down to the power of repetition. Repeated exposure to certain ideas or beliefs can gradually shape the collective consciousness, eventually giving rise to a more potent resonant field that continues to grow and evolve over time as the repeated signal becomes constant. Whether driven by dogma or the subtle influence of the Archon, this persistent repetition of ideas on a psychic or telepathic level can be thought of as a constant broadcasting of signals, akin to the unceasing transmission of radio waves. Over time, these relentless transmissions have the power to alter an unsuspecting mind, setting in motion a cascade of change that makes it increasingly easier to sway another's perspective and, subsequently, yet another, and another person after that. As this resonant field expands, its potency grows, rendering it more challenging for individuals to resist these elusive, non-physical data structures that lie beyond the realm of our everyday senses. However, it is important to acknowledge that despite their potency, individuals can still find ways to withstand these powerful morphogenic fields, even when they may sometimes have negative effects on our minds. This concept is explored in greater detail within the book mentioned at the beginning of this video, where strategies for navigating and overcoming such challenging environments are discussed. This is of course a highly controversial topic, and I urge you to please do your own research, so that you can come to your own individual conclusions. It is my hope that in realizing that there are scientists researching the possibility of mass non-local communications, you can begin to explore the possibility of collective social movement and organization through what could be termed morphogenic or telepathic fields, on your own. Please like and subscribe to this channel if you have enjoyed this video. I also invite you to please comment if there are particular topics that you would like me to discuss in future videos.